Hey,
Hey, welcome back to the RKOX podcast. It is August.
yes, it is August.
I don't know.
I think that's enough detail.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. School starts tomorrow for us, anyways. So
Yeah.
we're back at it, which is crazy because guess what? This is my last. So everybody makes fun of me, but it's fine. I don't care. So this is going to be the last first day of school for my last baby. So all of
Okay.
the other ones are gone. They're already out of the house. So I've only got one left. Well, my middle one's leaving this weekend. So
Okay.
she's going to go play softball, college ball this weekend. Well, not this weekend. I mean, for however long she's going to do it. But she's leaving this weekend to go do that. So I only have one left before I'm an empty nester.
All right. Congratulations.
Right?
Yeah. Well, then there's, yep, all that free time.
Yeah, because there's so much of it. Even when they're not with me, it doesn't matter. I think even when they're gone, I still don't even know that they're ever going to be fully out of the house.
Like, you can't believe
I
it.
highly suspect that my middle one is going to be home every weekend.
Hopefully she's not listening then.
You're
You can give
You're
her
welcome home anytime, baby.
yeah, you can give her a heads up now and just say, "Hey, don't stay away. Don't be a stranger.
Don't be a stranger. Be a stranger.
Be a stranger."
If you're a stranger, it's fine. It's
Yeah,
part
you know
of
what?
the process, though, right?
Pushing the baby birds out of the nest.
Not pushing. I mean, I'm not forcing it. This is a natural, organic progression of life.
I mean, think about how fed up mama birds get that they would shove a baby out of a nest, which is
They
like
don't
what,
actually do
200
that,
stories?
right? They don't. Is that like fact? Is that science? Is that fact?
Well, I think they do push them out to get them to fly when they think they're ready and they haven't and they won't. And then they kind of push them and it's like, fly or don't.
Have you done
That's
research on this? I don't think so. I think
I
you're
mean,
just I think you're just making stuff up.
no, I'm pretty sure some of them push them out of the nest, but I think they're supposed to know that they're ready, but the babies don't know they're ready, but the moms do. And
Mine are ready.
see, it's the same thing. Yeah, there you
They're
go.
they're,
More like that.
they're ready.
2 hands. Yeah, yep. And then
They're ready. Yeah, so lots of going on this week. Lots of first things, first freshman in college, first freshman in high school. Well, actually last freshman for me in high school. So
all
yeah,
right.
so that's tomorrow. And it's kind of a big deal. I'm like, oh, I've got to take him, right? I need to take him because honestly, he'll be driving his
Yeah.
next first day of school, right? So
Mhm.
like his sophomore year, he's going to be driving. So, and then his junior year, and so God willing, right? He's going to be driving himself. So
Right.
this is like the last first day of my last kid, like the very last baby. It's the last first day. It's crazy. Time goes so fast, you
See,
know?
now it does. Now you think it
Right.
does.
Right. I look back and I'm like, oh my God, where did it go? Is it even
Yeah,
real?
yeah.
It doesn't even feel real. We were talking about this the other day about how, remember, I was telling you, I look back at like my entire adult life up to this point, and I've made so many drastic life changes in such a short period of time that I'm looking back at the last however many, and I'm thinking like, is it real? Did that happen? I didn't just live that, did I? I did though. It's weird, right?
It is. I mean, you're the one who's lived it. So yeah, how do you feel?
I feel like it's weird. Because it doesn't feel real. It's like looking back and thinking your kids are where they are right now, however old they are. Some people out there have like grandkids and great grandkids, and it's that I'm just like, God, that's so crazy to think. Like you're looking back and not just seeing your kids, but your grandkids. What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Are you ready for that? Grandkids?
Um, it's so funny because my daughter said she would never do that, and I have a feeling that'll
Never
change.
do what? Have kids?
Yeah, she pretty much didn't want to have kids, and she's maintained that for a number of years, and I don't know if that's true or not.
So you may or
Um,
may not have grandkids.
yeah, or maybe we just eventually create clones.
Or we could just travel around. We could just travel around the world and, install water filters and love on babies.
You know
Like
what? It's
other
so great. It's like,
people's babies.
yeah, other people's dogs, other people's babies, other people's everything's. Yes. And then we get to go home, and then there's like no, like, wow, there's no babies here. This is great.
Exactly. Exactly.
The only
Okay,
baby in the
so
room.
so other than all this, fun stuff, do you have any other
Mhm.
big things going on this week?
I'm checking out a new climbing gym, and
Ooh.
which is, yeah, it's open 24 hours a day.
That's so fun. Why? I mean, that means there has to be staff there 24 hours a day,
No,
right?
it's kind of scary. The way they do it is you either use an app on a phone, or you get a little key fob, and you
Yeah.
get to swipe yourself, and they do not have any changing rooms or showers or whatever, but you can go, and you can go 24 hours a day. They have a full workout facility, and it's a bouldering gym. So it's not a full wall gym, but it's a
Yeah.
bouldering gym with a full workout facility, a really, really nice workout facility. And then they have a relationship with a local yoga studio about 5 blocks away from there.
Oh,
And
cool.
so you can go to all the yoga classes, or you can go to well, that's not 24 hours, but you get to go, but they have a monitor.
Uh-huh.
So no one's there from, I think, from like 10 or 11 at night until like maybe 5 or 6 in the morning, or maybe later. And then you can go
But
though.
it's
And
bouldering only though, right? No ropes.
yeah,
Okay.
bouldering in
Well,
a
that
gym.
makes sense then. That makes sense, right?
Well, they have an emergency button near the
I was
bouldering
just gonna
routes.
ask, what if there is an emergency? What
You
happens?
have to you have to crawl on your broken bones over to the emergency button and hit it.
See, I feel
That's
like
it.
I feel like if you go into and hey, this is an idea.
Okay.
I feel like it's pretty brilliant because if I was a
Okay.
gym owner, this is what I would want. So I feel like if you go into the gym and there isn't staff, right?
Mhm.
Then and the only way you should be able to climb is if you have like a life alert around your neck.
I feel like that's a better idea than you having to make it over to the one emergency button. Because if you have a
Right,
workout area,
right.
it's hundreds of
Yeah.
feet away.
It's like if you have to, check out a belay device or an ohm or something,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
then like that's the only way you can like gain entry to the floor is, at night is if you have a life alert around your neck.
Yeah. I'm interested because I know the
Brilliant,
hours I'm.
right? That's a brilliant idea. Admit it. Say it. It is.
Oh,
It's brilliant.
everyone, this stop before we get to anything that's um, our topics for the night. For sure, you just said something brilliant.
Thank you.
You're well.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I should do it again. I'll do it again soon.
I know. Thank you. Just every now and then, just throw out a brilliant idea.
Okay, so let's get to it. Tonight we bring to you the origins of oil. Is it man-made?
Yeah, or is it not?
So we have stumbled on this amazing 39-page scientific publication, and it's really interesting. And one of the first things that I noticed, one of the first things I thought, because we're really
Mhm.
into the whole, ooh, how does this make sense, kind of theories, And this says the deepest fossil. Okay, so first, let's talk about the question. What's the question we have? What are we asking here?
It had been thrown around a long time. That it has been thrown around a long time. We don't know where oil came from. So the short answer is it man-made or is it through some other process? Because the idea that it's just melted dinosaurs or melted plankton from millions of years ago does not actually make sense. But that's what we're told. That's the narrative. Just like humans are only a couple 100,000 years old, or we're up to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the question. Is it man, or is it artificially produced, or is it a natural fossil fuel?
Right.
The basic question.
Okay.
But it's not so basic.
And that it's not. And so that's one of the things that this article points out. And so one of the things I thought was interesting is it says the deepest fossil ever recovered was 16,000 feet below sea level. Yet petroleum can be extracted from over 30,000 feet, which is really interesting because one of the things that it points out is that petroleum has a lower density than water. And so naturally you're thinking, okay, well, if the one theory that states, so we have two different theories. We have like your generally like accepted mainstream theory that, you know, oil comes from fossils, right? Decomposed organic material, decomposed
plankton.
Yeah.
Lots of plankton. Plankton's good for everything, apparently.
Lots and lots of it. So that's one theory. And then then we have another theory that we have what Ukrainian and Russian scientists have proposed. But before we get to that one, let's talk about the first one, which is that it comes from fossils. Okay.
Yep.
So if petroleum has a lower density than water, it would naturally rise above water, right? And so since the fossils are on the surface of the planet and then they decompose, this was sort of this was like a common sense part for me. You've got, you know, organic material on the surface decomposing from the surface, right? And if oil is made from these decomposed materials, then it would be above the water table, yet it's not, it's underneath it. So how would that make sense? Like, how then does this chemical process take place between the surface and barely underneath it, and somehow yet it ends up below the water table? How does that happen?
Yeah. So that's a problem. And then some of these, I think it's important that we're going to point out the questions, but one of the quick answers is always, crustal displacement or crustal, like constantly, the earth is somehow eating itself.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that basically the earth is consuming its outer layer, then through volcanic activity and crustal movement, the stuff that's going to the middle, it's coming back up to the top, and then there's decomposition. So everything keeps hence, you know, why even there are streets in Illinois, and I'm only thinking of this because I'm thinking of Galena actually for no reason, but or Seattle, or Tulsa, the underground tour. The first floor where all the carriages and everybody went outside is 20 feet underground. That's 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, you could be 40 to 60 feet down in some places. In other places, you're 25 feet down, and that was street level. And just in 100 years, you're now you can dig down some of these streets and you can see the first stories, or you can go take an underground tour in Tulsa or in Seattle. And okay, so what happens after millions of years? You can imagine things sinking, but it makes zero sense. If oil is always lighter, when it always float up, everything's going down. When it always stay floaty, right?
Floaty. Wouldn't it always stay floaty? Wouldn't the buoyancy remain the same?
Ooh, big words. We got a $2 word at least.
Wouldn't the buoyancy remain the same?
Oh, that also sounds like a good song. That's at least
Oh,
a top 10
speaking
hit.
of buoyancy, something that just occurred to me was one of the things that I found fascinating was the helium factor in the oil. They talked about how there's helium found in the oil. So we talk about the buoyancy in it, and I'm just thinking about helium balloons, buoyancy. That would make sense, right?
Why not? And also really funny voices.
Right.
But yeah, well, so yeah, helium, it does not occur there's a lot of information about this, and I don't know why no one talks about it. And again, this one more thing, RQX is, here we are doing this, like introducing the dialogue where you have something like helium, or well, on the subject of oil, there is no natural, according to the paper. Well, it's not according to the paper. There's in reference to noble gases and gases in general, there is no existence of helium within. It's a significant portion of oil, and it does not occur naturally. So you have a product in oil that
In
cannot
theory,
naturally
so
occur.
let's be clear though, in theory. So both explanations of the origins of oil are both theory. Neither have been proved, right? I'm going to be honest and tell you that I didn't make it to the end of the paper, so I don't know.
There's some static. It's messing up. I don't quite hear you right now. What was that? I can't quite hear you. That part. So anyway, Kristi and I have read this thoroughly, and what we were just talking about is that so here's what we know. There are
just
elements.
The end. It was literally the last few
down.
pages. God.
So oil, it's a 39-page paper, and there's zillions of stuff out there, and the dialogue. There's a lot of layers for us to talk about why people want it to be a fossil fuel, why people don't, why people want it to be scarce. Is it self-regenerating? But let's stay on helium for a minute, because this is of the cocktail of oil. There is no natural example of helium being a part of oil. It would have to be introduced. It's not a naturally occurring thing. It should. So it's a fact of all the theories of the origins of petroleum. Helium would have to be added by something else or someone else. It has to be added in. And it's not a natural, it does not, and the paper even states helium doesn't occur naturally in this form. It just doesn't happen. So we have a product that has petroleum, that has elements in it. So they're like, well, wait, there's the reason this dinosaurs are fossil fuels is because there's flora and there's these remnants of wood or bio things and again melted creatures that have somehow
melted creatures. These melted creatures.
Isn't that what oil?
Just melted creatures. That's all.
For those of you who aren't entirely. Hey, I take a drink on the idea of it being life goo.
Life goo.
Yeah, leftover or. Well, that is so fossil fuel. So you have an element.
Let's segue back to the helium in just a second. But I made this note here, and I want to read this, and I put quote and made it big so I could make sure that it's known that this is a quote. This is not paraphrase. This is a quote. It says, "It must be admitted that biogenic origin of petroleum is a mainstream theory adopted by the majority of petroleum reservoir engineers, geologists, and scientists." And then it goes on to say that an abiogenic origin theory has a small number of vocal advocates, yet it would have significant implications if they were proven correct. So you were about to say part of what RQX does. This is part of what RQX does. This last sentence right here. Yet it would have significant implications if it were proven correct. So one of the things that we do at RQX is search we research these things. We look into the origins of things like this, the theories, and we try to figure out where it came from. And things like this, something as simple as oil that we hear about all the time is a huge part of our daily lives. Hydrocarbons are in everything. They're in everything. And so this is part of our life every day that we don't even think about. But here we go. Like, we don't even know the origins of it. And is this going to be a resource that's depleted in time? Because according to one theory, it is a limited, finite resource. And according to the other theory, it is the opposite. It just is an infinite resource that continues to self-replicate and reproduce itself, like we discussed Terra Preta and possibly the sequoias. Like, what's the origin of those, So
Yeah.
there's a lot to unpack here. We can segue back to the helium right now if you want to, or we can discuss what you think, because my question is, when it says, yet it would have significant implications if it were proven correct, basically that, oil is infinite and self-replicating and possibly bioengineered.
Right.
What implications do you think that would have on existence?
Right. So big picture is, if oil is self-replicating, man-made, or ancient advanced technology, just like Terra Preta, if it's part of an underground system of lubricant, I mean, we use oil for a lot of things, but at a minimum, it's definitely used as a lubricant. And yeah, we dig it up and burn it, but if it's meant to be part of planetary plate tectonics, is it something that is replicating? Because that's in the paper also.
Is that your leading theory? Is that your leading theory that petroleum is like a lubricant for the planetary plates?
Crust. I think, and yes, in short, yes. Just a reminder to everyone, plate tectonics is also a theory as to what's underground. But the one thing is for sure, we have a layer of continental. We live on layers of rock that move. We know that. The theory of whether or not there are giant plates that we're calling it plates that they sit on each other, they can rub together, they can overlap, they can bend down, they can bend up. So like literally two continents can come together. So when we experience earthquakes, what we're experiencing is either the plates are rubbing, they're overlapping, they're pushing up, or they're pushing down. That is the theory of plate. That is what the plates do. So they're floating on something. They're hydraulically lifted on something. So on one hand, is it water, or is there a massive, uncalculable amount of lubricant that is holding the plates between a core, whether it's plasma or iron or whatever we think it is, and then there's somehow these massive plates moving slowly around, and they're being held up by oil, and the oil that we're drilling up. Because significantly, that's the other thing, is that we're talking about oil is found within the layers of. So our theory is, if it's a fossil fuel, that it comes from. Because I think we should hit this right now. If that's so, is that enough on that? Can I digress to?
Yeah. Go ahead.
The layer of what? Yeah, because this ties in. So if Earth is floating on hydraulic, if oil is a self-replicating lubricant meant for the plates, then it's floating up from way under where life, the entire theory of evolution and life, does not include the fact that anything that's been alive on the planet is considered, and they point this out in the paper, is considered to be higher than 16,000 feet. So that's basically just over 3 miles deep, right? Everything above 16,000 feet is the only location, if it's an organic. This is another checkbox about, is it a fossil fuel? Is it from that, or is it a engineered something? Yes, it could have been made by a process that we don't understand underground, but that means if we were going to, and everybody knows about drilling oil, well, there are wells that are 30, 50,000 feet deep, 30,000 feet deep. That's over double the distance deep that all life on Earth has been theoretically hypothesized to be. All life on Earth is 16,000 feet and higher, which means that anything that's died and disappeared should not be 30,000 feet deep. So if oil was a fossil fuel, what the hell? Unless you could, okay, you could automatically argue. What do you think
But
of that?
why though? Wait,
I think
but wait, well, wait. Because as someone who is new to the, like field of archaeology, so when you're talking about, you know, things only being 16,000 feet or above,
yeah.
and nothing
Yep.
has been, so nothing has to date, what you're saying is nothing has been found below 16,000 feet.
That we know of. And the problem with this,
But
too,
why?
is,
Why though? Why? But why?
okay, so one thing is crustal. Okay, so we're talking about plates. So to confuse everyone further, there's giant plates that once we were Pangea and everything was there, and then Pangea broke up. So the plates,
Which
that
is
the parts
also a
of what's
theory.
above,
Which is also
right, right. So we have this landmass that
theory.
used to be made. That there's a theory that it was once a singular landmass. Now we have multiple landmasses, and no matter what, anything above and below the, by the way, above and below the ocean, anything that's on the surface of the planet keeps getting like kind of melted in, and then it gets recycled out by volcanoes, and that somehow there are spots on the earth where it goes up and some of it goes in, and then volcanic matter adds to the surface of the earth, and then there's all this stuff that's living and dying, and it composts, and eventually they're just like things that are on the surface go in, things that are new keep coming out. And so there's this, that's the general theory of it, right? So the plates are theoretical, the way they move is theoretical. And I was tying that back into what were we just talking about? I went too far. I did it again. We were just talking about
Well, I asked
16.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why doesn't anything exist below 16,000? What's the trick there? Why is that the cutoff?
Because because from the digging they've done and the research they've done, they can find fossils that are 1,600,000 years old, and that's problematic. 600 million years old. They can find things in layers of the earth when they dig just hundreds of feet, but of the microscopic organisms of whatever, when they've taken core samples from drills that have gone, there are, again, so here's the problem. There are oil wells that are 30 and 50,000 feet deep. That is a problem if everything is everything that's ever existed evolved, and we literally went from a bacterium. Again, the idea that the natural origin of this not being an intelligent design or anything is that, or gods or God or whatever, that the first microscopic organisms showed up, and any fossilized record of anything that we think of as organic life on this planet has not been geologically found, physically found below 16,000 feet. So you have a big problem if you're finding helium filled and other chemical filled product, a lubricant, a fire, a fuel, a product like oil, petroleum, if it's below 16,000 feet, when nothing's ever died, nothing's ever lived. And then, so the theory goes that, well, this should make everyone a little worried. They're saying, well, there's crustal displacement. So the earth is constantly feeding in on itself like quicksand, and then it's constantly coming up like an hourglass, and it's constantly going down. Okay, you should be a little worried if it's going that fast that it's sucking itself into the ground and up. that it cycled through. You see where I'm going? Like if it's all gone within 16, like you don't have anything below 16,000 feet, but you have oil, but nothing between the lack of
Between here and
fossilization.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
between 16,000 and 50. Yeah.
So what do you think? So we know, okay. If it's not a naturally occurring, organic, happening on the earth, what does that make it? And then so the question would be there, then who
Right.
and how and what? Because because of the presence of helium, I feel like that sort of changes it just ever so slightly. And that if that isn't an organic, naturally occurring, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me.
Juice.
Yeah,
Melted juice.
part of the compound. Like if it's not, then who added it? And you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
And
we know
and how
helium.
long ago? And if that was the case and it's bioengineered like terra preta, that's self-replicating. So
Right.
is oil, because so one of the things that I definitely want to read, part of this article, it says here. First, before I get into this, do you want to answer that? Do you want to address any of the questions? Because that was a lot.
Yeah. Well, here's again, this is what people got to get their brains around, is that a biogenic source of petroleum. That's what you're going to look up if you go on and you start researching it yourself. A biogenic sounds like it spells like it sounds.
All one word. Yeah.
Yeah, or biogenic. So why does this matter? So if oil, if there's so one of the theories says, well, if there's oil 30,000 or 50,000 feet deep or even further or under the mantle of the earth, well, it must be down there, and things move. And we already know some of the properties of oil. I'm just imagining, so I'm theorizing that if there is oil below the layers that we're finding it in, that what we've found thus far is one, leakage from the center of below the mantle, that it's not, the reason it's not consistent is because it is just there cracks from where this vast beyond we can possibly fathom oil or petroleum is way deeper, and it's leaked up. So if because it's lighter, so it's leaked up from even lower in the earth, which again is problematic. So one, it means that the earth is much, 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 much older. If it was a natural process, then we could even fathom how old the earth is and how old, therefore, the solar system and the galaxy and the universe is. It's even way older than we think.
But there's no way, you're not right now in this moment claiming that we can determine that based on any oil.
No, petroleum. So the problem is that if it's much, much lower and it contains elements like helium, which do not naturally occur, and would have to be made, and if it self-replicates, if it's not a finite thing, if it's part of a plate tectonic that allows the plates it literally greases the plates of the earth that move, and it self-replicates, and it's not a finite supply. And one of the reasons we think this is because there are multiple fields that were estimated to have X amount of billions of barrels in it. There are examples here in America, in Russia, all around the world where they literally watch the daily production go from tens of thousands down to a few thousand, and then literally, voila, 100 years later, suddenly they're grabbing quadruple what they went down to. Suddenly it went way up again, and so that you could argue, okay, well, that's because that area is replenishing either through self-replication or the leak that's there. There's more oil leaking out, or it's self-replicating. So you have this clear indication.
But those are two completely different. Those are completely different theories.
Yeah, because it's actually happening in real time. In the last 100 years, we've watched oil fields daily production rates drop by tens of thousands of barrels, and then suddenly spike back up, and they're not ending, they're not stopping. So it's showing that the fields that were supposed to be diminishing and ultimately being drained are not. They're filling back up. So why? Is it a finite supply leaking from under the mantle, or is it an infinite supply of problem? If
Okay,
it's
hold
not a
on.
fossil fuel.
I want to pause you here for a second because I did spend a little bit of time in oil and gas before I moved into LIDAR. So, but before I spent a little bit of time in oil and gas. And what I do know is these wells that are drilled in the ground, they do deplete. This isn't like a self-replicating process where it's like an endless thing. The wells that are drilled into the ground do deplete. So, and this happens over this is a lot of years for most wells that are drilled. They're deep enough, and it's a long process. I mean, it could be like 2 or 3, 4 decades. So how do we explain that? So how do we explain that if some of these wells do deplete, and so we're looking at the science behind, and common sense just says, okay, well, we're drilling in the ground here, and we're pulling out all of this petroleum. So here's we've got all of this oil coming out, and we're pumping, and it shows, and this is public data. This is something you can get online
Yeah.
and you look at. And I'm not opposing any
Yeah.
theories, and I'm not trying to poke holes in anything. I'm just pointing out the obvious, and that you can get on these public websites and you can see well data, or I think there's subscriptions you can get. I don't know, but you can go into individual wells and you can read well data, and you can see how over time throughout the years that the productions just slowly depletes throughout time. So how do you explain that?
Yeah.
Because naturally, if we're seeing this over here in this location, and at this, if we're drilling here and drilling here and drilling here, and we're seeing the same results, or not the same results, but the same process over time, depletion over time. If we're watching this depletion happen over time, then naturally we're looking at a resource that is not infinite. We're looking at a finite resource, and we would make that assumption, right? If we're watching this happen,
Right.
then we're making the assumption that, okay, well, this well is dry now. Let's move on to the next. And then we go dig over here, and or we go drill over here, and then the process just repeats itself. So how do you explain that?
So within the paper that we're citing, which we should probably put up for everyone to look at if they want.
Yeah, we can put this in the show notes for sure.
One of the things that they point out are some of the examples. So there's wells, and then there's fields. So for those that, not that I'm an oil expert, or we are, but and Kristi knows more than I do all day long, having worked in the business, but there are fields. So they'll drill wells within a field of oil, and that field of oil will have an estimated number of billions of gallons. And so what's interesting within the paper is they problematically cite, I think 2 or 3 at a minimum, known fields that are 100 years into their production, not 20, 100 years into their production, where they watch them go
this
from.
Was problematic. Like you said this was problematic.
It's problematic. No, okay. So I'm referring to the paper.
Okay.
And the reason it's problematic within the paper is that what they're pointing out, they're saying, well, look, so oil, if it's a finite resource, it depletes. We guesstimate how many barrels for futures and for stocks and for business and for the price of oil. We guesstimate and say this whole field where all these wells have been put is going to have X amount of oil, and then it's going to run out, and then we're going to be done. So problem, after not 20 years, after 100 years of production, where at one point a field that was producing 55,000 barrels a day suddenly over time dropped down to 4,000 barrels a day. But then it ramped back up to over 25,000 barrels a day. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, wait, no, how So there are multiple fields that have been tapped for close to about 100 years, and they're in America, they're in Russia, they're in the Middle East, or in
Can you state where? Can you cite where in America?
yeah, there's a whole section within that 39-page paper that we're reading, that we're citing to people,
Okay.
that cite the names of the fields that I'm discussing. I would hesitate to send either you or I back to the names of the fields, because I would have to scroll for a minute, and that is the death of conversation right now.
I know. I mean,
I'm
you're
not going.
talking, and I'm just like, can I find it fast?
You know what? I will tell you this. It's basically towards the middle bottom, if you want to look for it,
The
and
middle
they will name
bottom, is that a thing?
yeah.
The middle
So
bottom.
right, so it's somewhere between page 20 and 39,
You
or
know what?
22 and 39.
I think I
30.
just found it, because I'm just seeing like names of things here. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter,
so they name
but the point is what you're saying is, because this is what I think, being from Texas, like we have, yeah, so we have like the Permian and the Haynesville, and so we have all of these different shells, right? And these,
right, right.
it's like basically it's like pockets of oil and gas,
Yeah.
a lot of natural gas. And so there are these pockets all over. And so being from Texas, we know that you've got the Permian, and there's just different areas, and so what I'm thinking in my mind when you say like there are areas or whatever, and then you've got places within those where you drill, that's what I'm envisioning, is like in Texas, there are these different areas of activity, I guess.
Yeah.
And within those areas is I don't know how they do it. I don't know how, I'm not really sure what the test looks like, but they go into these different areas and they do whatever test they do. And they say, this is a likely area. If we drill here, we'll probably find oil.
Yeah.
And which really, I don't know what all goes into that. I know that there's a science behind it. So what I'm envisioning in my mind is like there are these pockets of oil or natural gas. And is that what you're referring to?
Well, I'm referring to, can I read it to you? Because I found it.
Yeah.
So within our paper, we're discussing reservoir replenishment, which is within the paper, section 4.15. And so this is the problem. And what I'm referring to is some petroleum reservoir engineers have been puzzled. I'm paraphrasing. They realized that their estimated existing resources in old wells were increasing rather than decreasing. That's a problem, right? It could be that the original estimates were underestimated, right? So they consider that. However, some suggested that what could be observing in deep petroleum wells was in fact leaking hydrocarbons from the mantle of the Earth's diffusing upwards through the fractures into common sedimentary. Basically, what they're saying is the oil that was coming up back into these fields were coming from further deeper into the planet, into the mantle and the crust, right? And this is a hypothesis, right, as to how is it that an existing field. So here's one: the Spindletop Dome in southeast Texas was discovered in 1901, and it's still producing, even though at a slower rate, at depths reaching 10,000 feet. So here's a well that tapped in 1901, and it's producing at a slower rate, but it's doing it, and it's not depleting. So where's the oil coming from? And then some of the Russian and Ukrainian, next section, their ultra deep wells in the White Tiger field in Vietnam suggest that migration from the mantle could be 20 to 30% less than production at a shallow petroleum field's wellheads. Basically, the implication is that if the pressure of existing petroleum wells is allowed to be reduced by about 30%, petroleum supplies could be replenished by deep petroleum from the Earth's mantle. How did all the petroleum get in the Earth's mantle if it's not a hydraulic fluid? I'm just saying it's leaking hydraulic fluid, or again, nothing that has to do with organic fossilized life should be coming from the mantle of the earth, right? Everything's supposed to be
Oh,
from the
and I feel
surface.
I feel like that's sort of the easy part of the paper in this. Like, as we're reviewing this paper, I feel like that's like the easiest part of the entire argument is so naturally when we talk about, first
I
of
know,
all,
right?
can I just, can we just, I have to keep in mind that this is a show that people aren't just watching, but they're listening, so they cannot see our faces when we're doing this. But I have to also just say, can we just, for a second,
Yeah.
use a little bit of common sense? And we just look at the fact that we are taking a resource that we are pulling from like so far down, yet claiming that it's
Us.
that the reason why we have this resource on the planet is because of dinosaurs. Okay, come on. Can we just for like 1 second just stop and look at the facts that you've got? We've got, if we're saying that oil, that petroleum from that we're drilling out of like deep in the depths of the earth, that we're drilling this resource out of the planet, yet it was created from the surface of the planet. Okay.
Right.
And somehow it made it below the water table. So here we go.
Miles into the earth, it didn't just go from water to the water table. It went from the mantle of the earth.
Exactly my point. So what we're looking at here is common sense. It's like, this is just part of, I don't know, waking up in reality and stuff, and things like you start, you know what I mean? It's just, come on, so we've got two leading theories. Okay. And one theory states that petroleum comes from fossils,
melted dinosaurs,
decomposed organic material. Okay. From the surface of the earth, decomposed organic material. Okay. That's one theory. And then we've got another theory that it's this possibly biogenic substance that's maybe, I don't know, bioengineered by, I don't know. We'll get there in a second. But can we just look at the facts? Can we just, if oil has a lower density than water, it's just facts. It's like physics and science and all of the things, like
it doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up. If we have things dying on the surface of the planet, but we're yet we're drilling from like deep in the mantle of the earth, like the core of the earth, like we're not the core, but like, you know what I mean? Like we're drilling 30,000 to 50,000 feet into the earth.
Right.
How did these things decompose that far? I'm just wondering how.
And add in to add on to what you're saying, to really describe this to people. If we're talking about, we're just at those tens of thousands of feet, we're just getting to the surface of the mantle of the earth, which we're not. But the mantle of the earth is the start of yet another layer that is going more miles. So the idea that we're not even, and the idea that is oil is coming from under the mantle of the earth. So you have many more miles. And one more thing, you know how to make a cake?
Sure, yeah. I mean, are we talking about like from like Mama's scratch recipe, or are we talking about from the the box from the grocery store?
Okay, so
both ways, yes, I can make a cake.
Okay, but here's the thing though. Why would you make Mama's recipe? Why is it better?
Ooh, because it's organic.
No. Well,
It's using the
tell
good.
me this.
Oh no! Hold on a minute. I'm gonna.
Uh-huh.
The answer is because she makes it with love, but
Consciousness. Namaste.
okay.
You
But go
don't.
ahead.
Yeah. I love that. No, I love that. I love what you just. If for anyone not watching, it's yeah. Watch
Right,
Christy's answer
when
on
you
that.
cook, you put love into what or your
Yeah.
whatever you're cooking with, whatever your emotion is when you're cooking is what is like going into the food. So like if you're pissed off while you're cooking, it's probably not going to taste as good.
Okay, well, let me add something in that's just an obvious point, but I don't think everyone's under realizing this. What's the difference between mamas and a box? What's in the box? What is it?
Pre-mixed
What is it?
ingredients, maybe?
Okay, so what kind of ingredients? It's a combination of what?
Do you
Flour and things,
Yeah.
chemicals.
Yeah.
Okay, but what's mama's recipe?
I mean, it's all the same things. It's just separate. I don't know.
Okay,
Probably with
so
less like added. Can you just get to the point? I don't know where you're going with this. I can't follow.
because I don't think people don't follow. You know why? Because people just as justifiably don't follow this. All over the earth,
Uh-huh.
the identical petroleum was made by having the flour, the salt, the sugar, the yeast, and all the things just randomly come together identically, minus the specific flora and fauna all over the earth that
Yeah,
mixed in with the petroleum.
but isn't that the
But
same as the creation of like all things though? I mean, doesn't everything seem random, but it's not? You know what I mean? You're looking at this situation and it's like, oh, everything just so happened to come together this way. Like, how did that happen? Well, what about the universe? Oh my God, you're making the same point in both ways. Hold
cheers.
on a second. Oh, shit. It just happened. One of those moments. I just had it. Okay.
You did? I like when you have those moments.
Dang.
I like having those moments together. I mean, we get to a lot of
It's
these
always
places.
great to have those moments live.
Yeah.
Man, that was a big one. That was a big one. Okay. All right. Let's go with it.
Oh yeah. So tell me what you think. What are you feeling? It's a lot, isn't it? This is kind of like the point where we shut up and think and drive for a while and listen to some music.
I know. Take me there. Where are we going? Jeez.
Putting on some like really, really good Zen stuff and with some really rolly ancient forests and this is the thing to
Rolling
discuss and talk
ancient
about
forest.
and you know, or it comes to us seeing a being like Pando and asking it some questions, or
Oh, yeah.
or some sequoias, and your brain. This is Kristy's brain.
I know, Amelia. It's so only the people that are watching can see this happen in action. But I'm gonna bring us back to where we need to be here, and yeah. So let's come back to how.
So we haven't even discussed the term planetary builders, or
oh my God, architects of reality. Should we? Because I'm currently working on an article that I've currently been working on for 3 current weeks. So I cannot. And you know what the problem I'm having with it is I make progress and then I think to myself, but wait a second. Is it?
So
you know what I mean? It's so hard.
Yeah.
So tell me where you're at with yours.
Okay, so let me say this in reference to oil being. So let's say oil is a lubricant, a hydraulic lubricant for the planetary crustal system. Mm-hmm. It self-replicates. There is no way in nature, physics and chemistry, and you love chemistry. There's no way, unless intentionally designed and intentionally done, there's no way for oil to have, or petroleum to have helium in it. And there are some other things within oil that do not occur in quotes naturally. So
It's
we're
like an
talking about
additive. So like I think
right.
that should be separated. It's an additive. So what's so crazy
Yeah.
is helium, what it appears to be is, because it's not naturally occurring organically on the planet, is that helium has been added to it.
Well,
Somehow.
it's not naturally, there's no reason it should exist in petroleum unless it was put into it.
Purposely put there. Yes.
In which case, if it, and then we look at what we know from what we've made oil do,
Mm-hmm.
we can then imagine, we can imagine lifts, we can imagine hydraulic jacks. So we can imagine, well, oil would be a good product. It would be a thing if it could support the plates, and the plates are supported on something. And then we look at the distance of the moon, and we look at the very specifics that make this a higher, not just life, not just bacterium, but a higher life planet. And there are a lot of specific things that would have to happen. And then we have these allegories and stories. We have these folklores and myths of the time with no moon. So a race of humans or a race of beings that could move dead planets or design and build, intentionally design a self replicating
And
from the center out.
Can you hold your thought right there? And can we just also point out how significant it is when we talk about a time before the moon, how recent that is relative to the alternative history theory of the existence of the planet. So let's just say that if we aren't, if we're looking at how long we've been here, or how long there have been observers here on the planet to document or pass things on. Okay. So there is a time before the moon, and I believe even the Mayans talk about a time before the moon.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at just roughly like a couple thousand years ago that we're discussing like a time before the moon. And so is that passed on through like verbal dialogue? Are we talking about, is this verbal tradition that's being passed on? So when we talk about a time before the moons, and we can date this back to, a time before the moon, and we can date it back to like the Mayans or whatever, and we look at like maybe 2,000 years ago, then that's relative to the existence of possible beings on the planet.
Right.
It's short, right? So there's been way more time spent without a moon than with a moon.
So my high level, and I can't, so I apologize to everyone, because, and anyone who knows me over time, no matter how broad I dive, if you bear with me, no matter how far I'll spread out, I will come back to all the points. And that's a truism. I will always tie it all back together. If you don't have the patience, then step out, come back. You'll hear me come back. But here's the thing about planetary builders. If you have a self-replicating soils, petroleum down to the mantle, which means that, let's just say that a race of super intelligent human being-like creatures, whatever, aliens, whatever you want to say, they located this rock that was at the exact right distance from a star that would allow it to produce higher life forms. So what they did was they then injected a pre-existing globe. They injected it with this self-replicating lubricant. They created a moon to control tides. And maybe the allegories and stories of 2000 or 5000 or post-flood, the stories that we have now at the time of no moon, is a genetic memory that got activated post-flood by people getting downloads from the however reason. But more importantly, either then you have intelligent design, you have either a god or gods, or you have advanced peoples coming and modifying and tweaking this planet to contain the life it has, and then injecting systems like oil, petroleum, and making the system higher functioning. or it's random. And to give you an idea of random, Chris,
But hold on, can we
just
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to add in one thing. I'm getting better at this. Just in our galaxy, according to NASA, SETI, all the scientific institutions, just a few years ago, as of the current estimates. Let's guess. Do you want to guess how many potentially, and this is specifically eco, just exactly like Earth, higher life, not like, shit, it's kind of hot, but we could have like a bunch of little microorganisms on this like 3 million degree planet, right? Or 3 million below zero. No, how many exoplanets, planets like Earth, exoplanets, guess just in the galaxy, our galaxy, the Milky Way, the tiny little galaxy, guess how many SETI, NASA, and everyone has thought of currently as their current estimates, at least to the public, how many potential exoplanets are there?
I have no idea. I can't even guess. I have no idea. How many?
Throw out any number you could want. It could be small, it could be big.
This is crazy because it literally includes all of the numbers in existence. So I don't know.
Here's what narrows it down, though. Just what's known in our galaxy. Just our galaxy, not the universe, just our galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the number of exoplanets that they're currently estimating.
Spit it out. Hurry, you're killing me. You're killing me, Smalls.
300 million. 300 million Earth-like planets. Exoplanets.
Wait, stop it.
300 million.
Who is they, first of all? And second of all,
SETI, NASA, the Russian Academy of Science, basically the world science organizations that exist at the top of the echelons of science.
I can't make sense of this in my mind.
300 million Earth-like planets. So do they all contain a self-replicating soils and petroleum products to like to make a perfect environment for a bioengineered society?
Stop. That's not just the biggest question that comes from that. Like that, it's not the biggest. You just took this show from oil to a whole nother. Okay, so on next week's show,
we have a few weeks here. You're pretty happy. I can tell. For everyone wondering, this will be coming out in a future article that I wrote.
It will. Yes, that too. And also, I think that this is like next week. We have an idea.
We have a few weeks. Do we have a few weeks of discussing this?
Oh my God. I can't even with that, because what do you unpack with that? You know, it's just like, what even is reality at this point? You know, and I think, you know, when we think about like Schrodinger and how he just basically lost his mind, like now we know why. Because how can you compute this when you're a person of computation or math or, you know, like I need to make sense of these things. How can you make sense of this in your mind? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it changes everything. So it messes with religion and politics and social constructs and just everything. It just messes with everything. And so I think it's like, what is happening? So do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what's happening?
Yeah.
I mean, do you see what's happening right now? Do you see what's happening? I'm rabbit holing as we speak. I'm like, okay, so what does this mean for politics and religion and spirituality and all of the things? Like, how do we dive in? What do we do?
Are there 300 million Krishnas? Are there 300 million different, like, Vedic, 300 million?
I don't know, 144,000. Where do these numbers come from? I don't know, but can we dig into
that's
it
just
a little bit? Like, can we just, here's the thing. At the end of the day, Schrodinger saw something and I'm obsessed with it. I have t-shirts about this. I'm like, I sleep in these t-shirts. I wear these t-shirts. Sometimes the cat is in the box. Sometimes the cat is not in the box. Whatever it is. But this is why he lost his mind, because you can't. because of this. Like, if that's truth, let's just say that's truth. If that's truth, if we hold that as
Uh,
truth, what do we do with that? You know what I mean? What do you do with that? We're not just talking about oil on Earth. When you start diving
mhm,
into theories like this, when you start diving
mhm,
into, okay, so maybe we're, there are 300, whatever. When you start diving into, then
yeah.
there is no end. You've lost the tether to your sanity.
Uh-huh.
It just goes and goes
Uh-huh.
and goes for forever. And you can just dig for forever. Where does it end?
Let me give you. Can I throw something out there for you?
Please stop me.
I've
Help,
just.
help me. Help
Oh,
me. Grab the rope.
I'm gonna what?
Grab the rope.
For those that don't know, I really like to wind you up more than unwind you. So here, let's look at this. If petroleum, you ready? If petroleum is a artificial planetary builder, artificial hydraulic lubricant for plate tectonics and crustal support, intentionally designed, and I just mentioned 300 million exoplanets within our galactic system. What would it mean if the same hydraulic system is in all planets, showing that all planets were intentionally, intelligently designed
But you know what?
artificially?
Then at the same time, then that also shows that we're being observed on some odd level. That's like, what are we observing and why? Because if
Yeah.
we've got multiple planets having the same experience, where you've got multiple planets similar to Earth, and you've got this substance happening within the Earth that acts like a lubricant or whatever, then you have to ask yourself, like, what, how, what, who? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, here's one for you then. So let's say on the Schrodinger front, on your one of your favorite fronts, when
Yeah.
let's say you and I go to sleep and we dream of a universe, we dream of a planetary, we dream of something out there, and we imagine a people, we imagine a universe or a world or a galaxy, whatever. But then in the ether, we don't know, we consciously don't know that the Earth needs crustal hydraulic fluid like petroleum, but something, the higher consciousness of the ether, does know. So either a all-encompassing intelligent designer knows that, oh, look, Chris and Jared just imagined a universe or a planetary system. Well, we know that that requires it to have these pieces in order for the planet to exist, or perhaps so the system itself inherently understands the design functions, the actual building blocks to make your concepts work. So we do not have to be aware of the particulars of the on and off switches and the pieces that need in order for the house to be built, or in order for the universe to be built, or there is actual conscious infinite number of potential builders that can throw together planets, solar systems, galaxies, and universes with a building block system that has been written like DNA into some universal code. I mean, there's a lot of places to go with it.
My normal response to that would be to, like, constrict. I want to say, we're not capable. We don't have that capacity. We can't. We whatever. I just my it's like
Yeah.
my it's like a naturally, in a 3D sense, want to say we can't. It's not possible. We can't. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we start thinking about all of the possibilities outside of that, and we start thinking about
Yeah.
what we are capable of, I just think that we are, like, we're born with this idea of, like, start and stop, and like birth and death and all, end and
Mm-hmm.
beginning. And, there's like a start and a stop to everything. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
what if there's not? What if this is just like a continuous loop of experience, and there is no start and stop? What if it is just keeps going and going and going? So when we're talking about like creators of other galaxies or universes, or, the 300 million other, possible Earths inside just our own, like,
Yeah.
then, it, you have to sort of ask yourself at that point, where does it end? Like, to what end? You know what I mean? Like, to what end? And then when you ask yourself that question, given the colossal uh just magnitude, depth, and gravity of existence in the universe, and trying to understand it all, you know what if there is not an end? What if,
Mm.
we just need, like, the credits to roll at the end of the movie, but their credits just never roll? They just it just keeps looping. The story just keeps being told. It just keeps unfolding in whatever way it's meant to unfold, and then it just starts
Right.
over. Does that make sense, or am I just rambling?
No, it tracked all of it, because so the theory of the Big Bang, which we know we've disproved because we've looked to the center of what we thought was the beginning, and it turns out there's an infinite amount of universes past what we can see. So that's a problem. But within our galaxy, within those 300 million planets, when did they form and in what order? So in the lineal idea, or the non-quantum, the 1, 2, 3, in the order of things, of those 300 million exoplanets, when did the first one become habitable? Did they all become habitable at once? Or did one become habitable, 100 billion years ago, and half of them 75 billion years ago, when they became higher life forms in those spaces and those planets came into existence? Basically, they don't determine when there was higher life on them. And then each one of those higher life forms, Chris, what happens when they tap into the ether and imagine new universes and
Well,
imagine
and
new
that's
things?
that's the question, is like what we're doing here. And there are all of these, we look at childhood conditioning and social programming and all of these different experiences that we have
Yeah.
while we're alive on this planet, and how it forms who we are and what we think and how we think and how we process and how we view reality itself. These are big things. These aren't just, you're raised with this ideology, or, this belief system or whatever. This is so much. This is like integral to reality itself. This isn't about
Right.
a religion or a political belief or any of that. It's about just reality itself, like what you're rooted in. And like, how do you exist on the planet? How do you have this experience and do these things, and know that there are all of these possibilities out there, like, that there, x amount of, or however many millions of exoplanets, just like Earth, floating out there, like. And then also, we're constantly making these new discoveries. So the things that we didn't know before, we all of the sudden know, and
Right.
it changes reality. And so when you accept that that's coming, that is inevitable, that we're going to learn new science, we're going to build new technologies that uncover new truths, that we're going to, have these experiences, then it's like everything that you learn in the now, in the today, needs to be fluid and flexible, because tomorrow it could
Yeah.
change, based on what we learn and discover. It could change.
All right. So learning the moral part of the moral in that, and I think there's a moral that's worth just dropping for a second, which is people should not live and die based on what they know now on anything.
No, and that's something that we've discussed in previous shows is, some really intelligent, brilliant people have been ostracized from their communities based on, just like Dr. Holt with Semmelweis, right?
Yep.
Semmelweis,
Yep.
he basically claimed that we should wash our hands before we handle newborn babies.
Shocking.
Yeah, right. And then he was thrown into a mental institution, and then 14 days later was beaten to death and murdered. And and so then you have to look at the conspiracies behind that and where that comes from, and why that happened. But also at the same time, you have to look at, you cannot deny the fact that we're presented with new facts and new science and new information all the time, and we have to ebb and flow with new discoveries. We have to move with what we find. We have to say, okay, well, you know what, up until this point, this is what we believed, but we've now made this discovery that changes everything, and we accept that this is now the new belief and what we believe now. Like, we need to completely remove our ego from science and history and all of the things. We need to remove
I agree.
ego. We need to remove science. We need to remove, not science. We need to remove what, obviously, but we need to remove all of our pre-existing beliefs in all of these systems. And we need to just look at it with fresh eyes and accept that when we make these new discoveries, that it may change the way we look at science moving forward. And that's okay.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, we found this new thing and this is cool. Let's go with it. It doesn't, it's like, it's okay in science if we make a new discovery and now we can cure this illness or whatever. But in archaeology or in history, it's like we make a new discovery and we have to rewrite the books. Yes.
Yeah, and they're terrified. It's terrifying to the standard academics that they don't want to do that.
No, but that's what absolutely has to happen. We have, if we can make these new discoveries in science, and we can say, okay, well, we haven't been able to treat this specific illness in the past years, but now all of a sudden we have found this, and now we can. And so this is a good thing moving forward. Now we can treat this thing. It is no different in history.
Right.
It is no different in archaeology. When we find these new discoveries, we make these new discoveries, and we find new things. Then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Does it change what we knew before? Yeah. Is that okay? Yes. That's okay. That's totally okay. It's a 100%. It's not any different than looking at the medical field and making new discoveries and saying, now we can cure this because we found this. And now we've, it's like vaccines throughout the years. Now we have all of these vaccines curing these illnesses. And this is not something that was just like known from like off the cuff. It was studied and tested, and
Yep.
it's no different in history and archaeology. It's like, okay, well, now we're digging this up and we just made this new discovery, and does it change things? Yes. Is that okay? Yes. It's okay. Like, it's completely okay. There doesn't need to be Smithsonian ego in it.
I just got to wonder what happens when, what happens out of those 300 exoplanets, 300 million? What happens when 100 million of them believe one thing? What if they all end up on the same page? And what if the other half doesn't? What happens when you get collective consciousness aware at a level where you end up with so many beings being on one page and hundreds of millions of planets having an actual opposing view? And what does that do?
Though. It makes you wonder that question. Like, it's no different than what we experience right now on the planet. You've got, Republicans and Democrats, and I don't know, you've got all kinds of different opposing views, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm
what
glad we
if,
reduced it to politics. This is good.
but
What if
honestly,
what?
like, what if on a cosmic level it's the same? You know, that there are, like, we're just the ants colonizing this planet, but you know, what if in the greater, you just said, if there are 300 million possible Earths in our own space alone, what does that mean?
Yes.
What does that mean for
So
existence?
what do you think it means? I mean, how do you feel about it to you? How does that feel?
It makes me feel like I'm living in a hologram. It makes me feel like not that I'm insignificant, because I know that I'm significant to the ether, you know, that I know that I contribute
Yeah.
to the collective as a whole. But it does make me think outside the box.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know how far we want to go
I
into
think we're,
like belief systems on the show, but I, am.
ooh, it's almost that time. But no,
It is.
seriously, you can go wherever you want. You actually no, don't get cut off. What you have a feeling, you have a thought process, and here's the thing. I would ask everyone to bear with, because your thought process and where you're going to start and where you're going to end is going to be entirely different.
Yeah. Yeah, typically.
So I'm giving you I'm just, you don't need permission, but I'm saying it out loud so that I can keep your brain encouraged.
I just think that like we need to be open-minded as a race, as, I think that it's clear that there is, a great awakening, or I just did air quotes for those that can't see. It was air quotes, great awakening. There is this great
Yeah.
awakening that's happening, and there are people that are waking up everywhere, and people are starting to question, like, what am I doing? Why am I here? What's the point? All of the things. And that leads you to dig a little bit deeper if you care enough to dig. And when
Yeah.
you start uncovering all of these things, these truths, these, that are contradictory to the ways that you've been taught and raised and the things that you've learned. And then you have to figure out how to reconcile that stuff, and, if you care anything about your existence, then you can't sleep at night until you do. And
Huh.
then there's a level of acceptance that comes with, okay, well, this is existence, this is what it looks like, and this is what we're dealing with. And so, for people like us, and one of the things that we've resorted to with this podcast is it's trying to figure that out, like trying to understand what we're doing here and where we come from and what's happening, and connect all of the dots, and how we live, and like how to best maximize our potential on the planet. And so I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. Like, I think that we're supposed to be plugged into each other. I think we're supposed to be plugged into this experience. And
Yeah.
it's super weird because being so recently removed from a very traditional ideology, I look back and I think to myself, it's 100% two different realities. But also at the same time, I see it doesn't have to be so hard. Like creating the things that you want, building the life that you want. Before, and I say before, I, geez, I don't ever get this candid. So I left a significant relationship of a couple of decades in January. And one of the big questions is, like, what do you do after that? Like, who even are you? And how do you exist? And so in searching for yourself, you realize that when you really start to dig deep, that all you have is is yourself, and that all of the things that exist inside you. And so all of the things that you experience on the outside, it's just temporary pain. It's not even real. It's sort of is it am I going too deep here?
No, go for it. You're doing good.
Okay. So it's not even real. So you have to take a step back, and you have to ask questions like, was there actually a time before the moon? And where does oil come from? And you have to start asking all of these questions, because all of these are essential to existence. Like, you have to have some sort of understanding of these questions, like, about Clarksdorps, like, how does that
Mhm.
make sense? How does an artifact that's 2.8 billion years old, how does that make sense on the planet with the narrative that we've been taught? So life and existence and reality is not just about the relationships that you're in, or the job that you have, or the kids that you produce, but it's about the learning and the growth and the evolution, and the understanding of all of the things. And when you start looking at all of the things, you can't help but jump in these rabbit holes and start asking questions, because it just goes on forever and ever and ever
Mhm.
and ever. And one of the biggest questions to me is, what are we doing? And how did we get here?
I have a thought on some of it. If you want to break for a second.
We have like 4 minutes. Shoot.
All right. I think that it's easy for us in our current state of consciousness to go into to do something, whether for months or years, the wrong thing, or something that is detriment. Like, you just asked some important question: how to really be engaged, or how to really be what's true, or what's
Hmm.
more what's yeah. So I have an idea. There's something that, and we kicked around this a little bit, but I'm going to throw out a question, or throw out a concept to ponder, which is that I think that maybe these 300 million exoplanets and the greater consciousness of the universe, I think, when we've all heard of, and a lot of people will like to think of Hollywood couples, but I think there's something to the mystery of male and female, of the duality of, and there's references in the Bible and about about what happens when you amplify. But wouldn't it be interesting to find out that when you are successfully miserable within the three dimensions, you
Successfully miserable.
yeah, like you've gotten the right, you've paid off your debts, and you have your bills paid, and you live in this very comfortable, you have all your,
Okay.
you have your, you got the groceries paid, and like, you're doing all the, you got golf on Saturdays, and nothing
Success.
wrong with that.
You're successfully miserable. Yes.
Yeah. But what if the whole point of being in like the idea of the power couple, what if the whole point is that the basic elements, the cocktail, the ingredients to Mama's cake. What if the true powers, the things that create universes, the things that create exoplanets, the things that create the higher things within the ether, is within not only that personal awareness, but when you're not in the wrong thing, when you're in the right thing, the universe, you get all the check boxes and everything, but it's when you actually participate in the right thing, you can create those exoplanets, and you can create those possibilities, and you can create an existence that is beyond successful misery. When you're in the right thing,
So
it's
you
not about what was.
so or what so just to be clear, are you saying that what you think, or maybe this theory, not what you think, but just throwing a theory out there, that as we evolve, as we grow and have, realizations, or that we create new universes in the process?
And I think that that's something we can do individually. We can do it collectively, but I think there's in
But
your
hold on a
example
minute,
of being
because that to me, hold on, like, so yes, your answer to that is yes. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that there are the mechanics or how it's possible, but how we do that isn't just from coming from the wrong things. It's when we do the right things, and when when we're really connected. It's amazing. I think some of these exoplanets and these universes and these quantum and ether things, I think they all tune and change, and they become symphonic instead of static and noise. I think that when you're able to compose and when you're able to play and when you're able to conduct, I think that these higher functions happen when we're not living just an isolated or 3D. Like, I think we have a lot of ideas at our minimal firing and functioning of the ambers of what should be a bonfire of our esoteric
Okay.
souls.
So what you're saying is, like, as we connect deeper inside ourselves, like as we live more connected lives, we're able to connect to this next level on a like that's just a little bit deeper. So as we as we are progressing through this human experience, and we're having experiences that create growth and evolution and all of this stuff, right? So it presents more opportunities for growth. And so what you're saying is, as we move with this evolution, this ebb and flow of growth and opportunity for growth, do you think that we energetically create other universes? Do you think that we physically create other universes? Like, how, as we evolve and grow in this experience, how do we affect the billions of other or millions of other exoplanets? How are we connected?
I
Like,
think
how do you envision, I guess that my biggest question is, like, how do you envision the connection between the magnitude of suspected, because I don't know what else to call it, like suspected growth. So if we can just like make all of these exoplanets with our mind.
I think we can individually do it. I think we can collectively as a society do it. But I think in your example of coming out of the wrong thing, or in the case of people downloading and creating children, I'm saying that there are ways that we individually, and in bad ways, not they're not, children aren't bad. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are, in our levels of consciousness, we can create babies and we can create a life and we can create successful misery in 3D. But I'm saying that in the right circumstances, in the right couplings, in the right minds, individually, collectively, and in the right couplings, you're not just creating an individual baby, you're creating universes, you're creating worlds, you're creating exoplanets, you're creating universes. I think that at every level, individually, coupling, societally, consciously, collectively, in group, I'm saying that when you reach those higher levels, there is a clear, I think, because of our physiological, I don't think in the intelligent design of how we are, there are complements, there are pairings, there is so much flour, so much sugar, so many things to bake a cake. And I think that it's clear that the gauge for all of it, not that it's a gauge, one of the measurements, and therefore, and I'm not saying we know the results of it. I'm just impressed, I guess it's, as we've spoken and as I'm concluding just right now, is just that it seems to me there is a bandwidth as we become all these things to do more than have. I think we do. We don't just create physical children, we create things individually and to all the different modalities that we're capable of, that we've been built as. It's not random, it's not an accident.
But
and
so, but you're referring to manifesting in this way, right? When you say like we have the ability to create things, like you're referring to.
I'm saying that it seems though that the way we channel, male or female, I'm saying that as we channel the way we are, the way we seem to be designed in the entire ether, there's something about the way that we've been designed that must create, whether it's an individual baby or an idea or literally a whole universe, let alone a galaxy. There seems to be I'm not trying to focus you on the intent behind our individual design. I'm just saying that it's interesting as we ponder all this, that there isn't something around us being able to do significant impacts to, whether it's 300 million exoplanets in one galaxy or 300 million dimensions or 300 million ideas. I think that it's an interesting thing for us to ponder. I don't want to conclude anything I
agree. I think it's an interesting thing to ponder, and I also think, like, how do you stop with it? So I want to read this one thing before we have to go, because
sure.
I think this is important. So one of the things that we do is we look at the effects that specific things have on like everyday life, right? So this says in Europe, and this is from the article. This says in Europe in late 2000, the French fishermen blockaded the channel ports because their fuel costs had doubled, even though their fuel was already supplied to them tax-free. The discontent spread rapidly to the UK and other European countries. Schools were closed. Hospitals had red alerts because staff and patients could not reach them. Supermarkets started rationing bread. Trade and industry were seriously interrupted, and people lost confidence in their governments. An interruption in supply for just a few days created havoc, demonstrating the deep dependence of modern society on petroleum as an energy source. What do you think would happen today if we ran out of oil for 4 days? If there was just zero, you couldn't get gas, just 4 days.
It'd be pretty rough. Currently, I would say it would have been rougher. Okay, the quantity of things that are made in material science that involve petroleum products, you wouldn't be able to climb a mountain without oil. You wouldn't have a rope. You wouldn't have the amount of things that oil is in petroleum. It would make it really difficult. However, the amount of material science, I'm not being optimistic, but the amount of material science that has come along to create products out of graphenes, and I know I'm not, everyone's thinking, I'm thinking of polyesters and name brand waterproof hiking, climbing, and campwear at the same time, computers and blah, 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 and everything else. But the reality is that there is enough alternative materials now and enough that's come along in quantum mechanics and material science that we could supplement everything, but the ability to produce it does not exist. The ability to switch to these modalities do not exist. So there would definitely be an immediate period of panic, an immediate period of wanting, but needing that's the hard thing. I feel like we're at a point where wanting and needing, there's still enough, there's still enough to go around, but it's not how people will feel. What do
It's
you think?
perspective. I think it's perspective.
Yeah.
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 So I know we are running out of time. We are actually past time. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and wrap this up. But we can pick this up next week. We can talk a little bit more about where we're at with this. And
Yeah.
but for now, this week, I think it's time to wrap it up.
You know what? It was a great time. So till next week.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next Wednesday. Same time, same place, RKOX. Bye, guys.
Bye.